the Sports Podcast Awards are back, so we might be entering those again.
Oh, okay.
So, mind you, we didn't really win this year, so I'm not really that bothered.
But we got, didn't we get?
We were on the shortlist, yeah. So.
Yeah.
Have we started? I don't know if this has started. I need to check actually. Now we've been.
I haven't seen it come up on the phone.
No, I'm talking. It says live chat, but if you can see us, say hello.
Hello.
And, wave goodbye.
Just checking for embargo.
Yeah. Could be the lowest energy start of the programme, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. People filter.
It's been a long, hard season.
Let's edit this out of the podcast if we are live. This event will start in 56 seconds.
Oh, it says we're live.
Oh, there you go.
It's just come through.
It's just not working for me, but that's fine.
No embargoes.
No. Not even the Hall of Fame. I mean, we know in the Hall. Well, almost in the Hall of Fame. It says waiting on my thing, but no one's joined the chat yet, so that's obviously that's usually a clue. Oh no, there we are. Oh, hello. Morning. Welcome to the podcast.
Your good health.
I tell you, it's been what a day. So I woke up this morning. Welcome to the podcast. 4020
This sounds
live.
like a blues song. Woke up this morning.
I woke up this morning on the floor because I'd fallen out of bed, and I've no idea. I can't remember dreaming about scoring a try at Wembley or anything important like that. But I was on the floor, and I couldn't work out how I got there.
Were there a collection of animals on the bed going?
No. I mean, usually there is. One of the cats. Now the other cat, the cat I like, he keeps taking me hostage by sitting on the reclining part of the chair, so I can't move. So that's a bit awkward.
Mr. Child was going to join us, but there was contact downstairs. He's
well, he's
in front of the disciplinary.
Like all the match officials, he's consistent in the fact that he's not here. He's got houses to sell and stuff. He's got a proper job. We can just make it up about the MRP as it is anyway. Evening to Phil, who not you, the Phil who's
evening anyway
on the chat. Welcome to the podcast. I just was on the floor. I was like, where? About 6 o'clock in the morning.
Some would say a bit like the game of rugby league.
Well, I mean, look, the play down. I don't want to say that's Josh Drinkwater, but it might be. You can't see that, it's broken.
It's all anybody wants to talk about.
It is apparently. Apart from what else have we got on Twitter? And we'll mention all these things because Ian wants us to talk about Halifax, so we'll mention that because that's obviously going on, and we can link that into Whitehaven. Merry Whistleblower, who appears to be a whistleblower about wheelchair rugby league, but we don't know who they are. When is that missing game going to be played?
Question has been asked for the integrity of the competition.
Integrity, what's that? And Terry Nutkins, surely not the Terry Nutkins. Is he still alive?
People aren't old enough to remember.
He's still with us. How long do Saints have to put up with Wellens for? One of the couple of years, I think. Well, but Lee Braze is coming.
One more year.
Lee Braze is coming. So
yeah, and the two of them
great
together.
Secret.
Dream team.
How are they going to fit all those people in? He reminds me of ex-Leeds United manager Alan Clark in the 1980-81 season. They were mind-numbingly dull, but not as bad as Saints are.
Oh, I thought he meant he'd had a sharp haircut.
I mean, the problem with Leeds United from the 1970s onwards, from Don Revie onwards, employing all their ex-players to lesser and lesser effects, and then brought somebody else in from the outside. And then they started doing it again in the 2000s. Carson says boo. Boo. Boo, Carson. Your biscuits are still here. So we're getting to all those things and more between now and the end of the programme. I'm turning to broadcast mode again. Don't know when I did that. What was the highlight of the weekend before I remember what we're going to talk about? What was your highlight anyway?
The 40th anniversary of Mansfield Marksmen beating Wakefield Trinity 15-0.
At Field Mill.
Looking at the respective teams thinking, how on earth did that happen? That wasn't the highlight of the weekend. That's just an anniversary that I was very fortunate to be at the Sheffield Eagles 40th anniversary dinner last Thursday night.
They are still going.
Some things rugby league does, I think, better than any other sport, and that is when old players and administrators get together and talk about what the sport means to them. It's really powerful, and there were some wonderful speeches, just genuine. Mark Gamson was hilarious. For those that don't know, he was one of the first players that Sheffield signed, came out of the Leeds Academy, I think he said his record is comparable to Jim Mills in terms of the amount of times he was dismissed. The only thing being that he was either a fullback or a scrum half. So he was funny. And I hadn't realised that Sheffield have used 21 venues in those 40 years. So if you talk about nomadic, every other year on average there's somewhere else. But it was great. It was great to hear from Gary and Kath Etherington about how it was formed. Great to hear from Ian Swire about how it was reformed. Great to hear from Jack Howison, who came up from Hemel to play for them, and again was the butt of some jokes, but more than held his own. And it was just a lovely event, and heritage was an absolute key part of it. And again, it's something that we've had Hall of Fame nominees and all that kind of thing this week. Heritage is really important, so that probably was the highlight of the weekend, even though it was technically Thursday night. So it wasn't technically Thursday night, it was Thursday night.
I've got the teams from Mansfield Marston versus Wakefield here. Mansfield, whose official club colours were Cambridge blue, dark blue and gold. Dark blue.
So light blue, dark blue and gold.
It's like Yorkshire cricket, Cambridge blue and Oxford blue and gold. Which, the mascot was 4.5, so he'll be just slightly older than me, Anthony Smith, which gives his full address here, which they used to do in the olden days.
GDPR?
Yeah. No. It's like if you watch those old big matches on ITV and Brian Moore will read out everyone's address. You can't do that, Brian. It's in there. And at 3:15 before the kickoff, or at some point, David Oxley, Rugby League Secretary General, will introduce famous Wakefield Trinity greats, it says, to the crowd.
Gentlemen, please. Yeah. The famous Wakefield greats.
Including perhaps a man who had one of his records broken this weekend.
Two
of his records broken this weekend. That's how good Max Jowett is. Why isn't it called the Secretary General anymore? Because that's a great
title.
It
is of the International Rugby League. Yes. Danica Kazanjian is the Secretary General.
Well, it's a Danica Preem then for a second. Bloody hell,
well, it's probably the only job she hasn't got coming up.
They come with free champagne.
So who was in that Wakefield team? Because that's why it's such an astonishing win for Mansfield.
Andrew Fletcher in his hair. I'm too young to have seen him, but this hair is almost a tribute to him. Nigel Stevenson.
He could play.
Nigel Bell. He certainly could
play.
Have we ever... I played in his testimonial cricket match.
Right.
They played Newton Hill at Newton Hill, and I'd just gone down to watch because I lived in the village next door. And Wakefield was short of a player, so I was in full Yorkshire Sunday League kit because I was one of those people. So they thought, he must be all right. Out first ball. John Thompson. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Johnny Thompson.
He's in the Hall of Fame at Wakefield. He should be taken out for losing to Mansfield.
One of the great forwards.
Yeah. Colin Maskell. So, they're all there. And I ended up working with Mansfield's prop forward Neil Kelly at the bed factory in Batley. So
we joke, but you got to remember these things.
Yeah.
I mean, we could start with the Hall of Fame if you want.
We can start with the Hall of Fame. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame because
6 people are about to be inducted.
Let me find the because it's split over 2 press releases. Did they do that to annoy League Express?
Yeah.
No.
Two historic figures. Jimmy Jones from 1910, who was the captain of the first tourists to go to Australasia and the first £100 transfer in Rugby League. And
have you forgotten the other names on our
Alan Prescott, who was the captain of the 58 Lions, and the famous Prescott Test where he played on the wing with a broken arm. And then 2 modern male greats in Jamie Peacock and Paul Sculthorpe.
We haven't got a copy of Jamie Peacock's book, despite the fact that you might have put the cover together. So
we'll get one for next week.
Oh, Paul Sculthorpe's, but you didn't put that book together, so we don't want to give him any extra sales. But those are 2 modern day professional people will have heard of them.
Hard to argue with their inclusion, and particularly there is an element that says that there has to be, you have to be held in the highest esteem in international rugby league. So players that the Aussies would fear.
Yeah.
You can put both of those 2 down. Sculthorpe was astonishing at playing at standoff in the David Waite team that only ever had loose forwards in it.
That 2001 Test match at Huddersfield was brilliant.
Well, also in the World Club Challenge that year when St Helens beat Wayne Bennett's Brisbane Broncos in the snow, Sculthorpe was unbelievable.
And two women in
yeah.
as well. Jane Banks and Michelle Land, who we're
Which
going to learn more about because...
If you look up their history, Pioneers doesn't do them justice in the women's game. And there's still one more category to be announced that's going into the Hall of Fame, which is, I don't think, in any other Hall of Fame. So
it's not referees. It's not James isn't going into the
breaking ground.
We've got a slot
I'm not really at liberty to say.
No. We've got a slot for a Hall of Famer on the programme now. So if we could get James in, or someone, it'd be all right. But so the Hall of Fame, 22nd of October, big date, everybody. Don't forget to send your cards in.
In Wigan.
In Wigan. So looking forward to those people
at
being
the
enshrined.
Edge, where they're hoping one day to have the Rugby League Museum.
What happened to the Rugby League Museum?
Well, apparently they're hoping it's going to be at the Edge in Wigan, which is why this event and various others have been there. The Lions event, I think, was moved from Bradford to there this year as well. So now you know why.
Why is it not in Alton anymore?
Good evening. So you could have your dinner on the table and read about James Lomas.
Good evening, Carsten. Good evening, Andy. Good evening, Emma. Good evening, Phil again, and Carsten. Who killed the Subbuteo player? He's been dead for a long time. I don't know what happened to him, but he's a Leeds player as well. So, did you do that in your younger days, or is that just?
I just don't think I could be trusted with super glue because I'd have got it all over my fingers.
That's why Subbuteo rugby didn't really catch on. But now
I think it was this player that was late in the tackle.
Is that Matty Lee?
Well, he's over there, yeah. That player's staying down.
This is a recreation of Matty Lee's running in to Chris Kendall. Are you ready for this? He's actually in the wrong kit, I know. Yeah. But... Oh, bloody hell. There you go. And Chris Kendall...
look, the flag's gone up.
I thought Chris Kendall handled that really well by not overplaying it, but it was a bit naughty, wasn't it? I mean, he's got a one-game ban, and I think he probably should have got more for that.
But not for the charge on Josh Drinkwater. Which I think the disciplinary said was minimal contact, which raises two very interesting issues.
Well, should we start with Sam Burgess then?
Well, that's one of them.
Because I think it's funny that it's always funny when people go on TV and say something, and then their players do the same thing that they've moaned about. Now, you could easily argue, I mean, Andy's a Warrington fan, so he can come on and tell us. You can argue Josh Drinkwater was hit, and he was down injured, so that's okay. But when your coach goes on TV explicitly saying to Brian Carney and his, I was going to say gang of idiots as if he was Rick Dees, but that's unfair on John Wells and John Wilkin. We don't like this. I was going to do an impression of Sam Burgess as if he's not from West Yorkshire. We don't like this in the game. We don't want players staying down and getting players sent off and this and that and the other and the MRP and blah, blah, blah. And then one of his players does it within 10 minutes.
So is there a sanction coming from within the club for that player? Who
tells the players to do it? Because unless they do it on their own autonomy.
Here's a thought. Is this not the unintended consequence of professional sport?
Everyone looks to find any advantage, don't they? Marginal gains.
Hasn't that always been the case, but exacerbated when livelihoods now depend on it? So I think we are making too much of it. I think that it will be...
It's great for social media content, if you're the host.
The only thing I did agree with John Wilkin is it is now becoming boring because it's every social media chat. It's the thing that everybody is talking about. And there's only one way you're going to stop it. So all of these, they're going to have to go off for a mandatory HIA even if they've been hit in the back. Well, that's not what the HIA is for. They're going to have a green card irrespective. No, some of them might actually be injured. There are two things that strike me. One is this is also an unintended consequence of every game having a video referee.
Phil's just said that on YouTube at the same time as you have. That's amazing.
And the other thing is that it can only be self-regulatory. So we've seen two incidents the weekend, which is why this will eventually stop. Because Matty Lees was in no doubt, as he was walking off, that Drinkwater was culpable in his sin binning. And I think it's fair to say Sam Tomkins wasn't too impressed with Chris Hankinson in the game that I saw between Catalan and Salford. And
his language was very measured to say I've seen him on TV.
His language was measured, but you could hear what he was saying and what he was accusing Hankinson of. And I think the more players accuse other players of that kind of thing, that's when it becomes self-regulatory. It's not about The game now needs to come up with some comparative penalty for those that are milking it. Like, there's going to be one occasion, and a referee is in a totally invidious position where somebody is genuinely injured in something that doesn't appear to be anything other than innocuous, and actually it turns out to be. And the one, when they're saying, come on, get up, play on, and the player's unfortunately being stretchered off because it's something very serious, they can't be seen to be part of that. So it's not going to be regulated by the men in the middle. It's not going to be regulated by coaches. Sam can say what he likes, but there's always going to be somebody within your team that undermines your argument. It's going to be the players themselves on the field that are going to start saying, what is a foul and what isn't. You're playing up to it. Don't do it. And you can't blame the players that are doing it, because that's also part of why they are professional players. Go back to the days when it was a part-time sport and it was born out of people coming off work and belting each other, and the person they belted could get one back with the tacit admission of the referee. Go on, you've had your go, have you? Those days have gone.
I need to find that clip from, the scrum in This Sporting Life where Frank Machin punches his own hooker.
Yes.
And gets the other hooker sent off.
Yes.
It's a great clip. And the referee's useless.
Only marginally fictional.
Yeah. Referee absolutely useless in that situation. Must have been dropped into Up and Under after that, because I can't think of another rugby league film, which is obviously far worse than This Sporting Life. And what did Alex Murphy do in the cup final? He wasn't cheating, was he? He's in the Hall of Fame.
Well, we'll never know, but apparently the punch was so bad that he could come back on. No, of course it's always gone on. It's just more heightened at the moment because of professionalism and that you can see every game. Yeah. And the fact is, if you're a referee, you are going to take as much advice as you can from the video official, because you're not going to be seen to be either putting a player in danger if they genuinely are, or making the wrong decision. And all of the decisions about sin bins and send off and force and mitigation, they come from the video referee. That it's not the guy in the middle.
Referees have enough to think about without having to go on a course to be experts in neuro injuries or whatever.
Absolutely.
So,
if it's about getting an advantage, then do whatever it takes, yeah. And that's always been the case. But it's worse now in professional sport.
I would love to know what, and it's a shame because Sky didn't ask Sam Burgess after the game, and there isn't a video of the press.
But then they did. Watching. To be fair, they didn't have the deliberations of the disciplinary. So but now is this week in his press conference is the time to ask him.
What have you done with Josh Drinkle?
Have you fined him? Yeah, he's contravened exactly what you have said. What is the punishment to go with that crime? Because the person who allegedly committed it has been found not guilty. Yeah,
Andy, the Subbuteo MRP have given him a 3-game ban, so it's not good as it's. We'll have to chuck Matty Lees away. I think it's supposed to be a Blackpool Borough player, but I think someone's just painted them.
It is. No, it's genuinely Blackpool.
Blackpool Borough. Now he's on Rob Burrow's hand there. Carson says, I stopped watching on the weekend. If I want to watch players lying down, I'll watch the 11-man code. Maybe the grand final ends 11 versus 11. Clubs should care about the long-term impact of players laying down on the TV revenue. Same here, says Phil. I'll watch an NRLW game on catch-up instead.
I think the other thing is that teams are now preparing to play with 12 men. And some are doing it a hell of a lot better than others. And the big game of the weekend was Wigan and Hull KR. Wigan got, was it 18 of their 24 points when Hull KR were down to 12 men? Is the issue that Hull KR were down to 12 men? Probably not. I think both of those sin binnings were valid. It's, were Hull KR good enough when they were down to 12 men? Probably not. Sam's been saying my team's had enough practice playing with 12 men. Well, the idea will be to keep 13 on if you can.
You think they would have done that already, wouldn't you? Because from the start of the season when there was all those cards, and we had less cards, and now we've got more cards again, fewer cards. But apparently not.
I think the bigger issue is there's been 21 red cards in Super League up to round 26. In the NRL, which you would argue in terms of its intensity and ferocity is a harder competition, there've been 3.
And they've got more cameras as well.
And a lot of the way they deal with it is to put incidents on report, and players get banned in the judiciary afterwards. Maybe that's something we need to look at. Is there enough put on report rather than referring to a video referee and players are being dispatched? I don't know.
I'm guessing we'd have to do that from next season, because if we start it now, people will say, well, why didn't you get... Why wasn't that put on report?
Yeah,
we'll start from the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the whole Josh Drinkwater thing is, if it's now been deemed to be minimal contact, that particular incident wasn't worthy of a sin binning, then that will be reflected in the disciplinary. And St Helens wouldn't have been short-handed for that 10 minutes because it wasn't worthy of it. Now, no referee, no video referee in an instant can see that. A match review panel can. So should we be just not putting more of these incidents on report where there isn't obvious injury? I don't know.
Something's rattling again, apparently. Let me. You'll hear no sound for a second. Sounds like somebody's twanging a plastic ruler on the desk. We've got a plastic ruler? I don't know. Faster equals velocity in contact. Space between rest. 6 agains on the run. Different game. Getting more tactical in time. Says us. Hello us. Carson's blaming your hands.
They're not on the table.
No. So, I don't know. Maybe it's this microphone. I need to get the other microphone. But we'll keep going for the moment. Still to come. Laughing at Hull. That's good. Got to mention that because, just in case Derek Bowman's around, you might want to tune in. Sam Tomkins, did you watch the film on the telly? You watched it before, haven't you? So I don't know if there's any difference, but it's really good. I'm glad
you've reviewed it.
I know. I'm glad they did that after I'd written my column saying it's not on telly yet, but when it comes on, I could put more spoilers.
Fortunately, somebody edited that out.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And
it's in the column of a magazine that's out this week.
Yeah, and John Davison's put a load of clips on.
Has he?
Yeah. So I don't know if the copyright police are going to get him, but you can go see it on there and see what I might have been talking about or might not have been talking about. What was because now he's not only is he on Sky and he interviews his own team coach and he stands.
You mentioned that as well.
I do. That actually did write people, and he stands next to Brian Carney.
And then he plays.
And then he what else does he do? Makes wine, apparently.
He does. Well, I don't know if he does yet.
But he's got a vineyard. What does an international manager do? What's the England international manager? Because I assume if I'm the manager of North Korea, I'm going to be booking hotels.
Well, probably one hotel.
One
because
hotel,
there is only
because we're
one
not going
hotel.
to go. If I was a manager, pick a country that doesn't have a rugby league team yet. Afghanistan. I've got a shirt, but I think that's because Steve Mascott made them up. If I'm the manager of Afghanistan, and he was selling them off, I've got to book hotels, book flights, all that kind of stuff. Tell players where to be, itineraries and such.
Talk to the hotel about what food and when and
I assume Sam Tomkins not going to be doing that. Maybe it's going to be like, in the England-Tonga series last year, Tonga took Conrad Hurrell as their mascot. Maybe Sam's going to be like that. Not in the furry head style.
I think it's safe to say that Sam and Sean Wayne are confidants. So
we see that in the film.
I think he'll be lending Sam's experience. Sam is also just come out of that playing environment, and I don't think we could argue too much with the squad. I think the only debate has been around. There's 2 or 3 of the elder forwards in there. Would you have gone with more than just Junior and Semba?
Yeah.
But I think Sam has come right out of that environment, and so you sometimes, your manager can be a bridge between what's going on in the dressing room and what their concerns are, and speaking to the coach, and because they're so close to each other, that is going to be a very smooth communication platform. I probably don't think he's ringing up the Worsley Hotel in Manchester going, it's pasta in 3 large buckets on a Thursday night.
I'm assuming they'll probably just stay at home anyway. And the Australian lads, they can live somewhere. They can doss with something else. It'll be all right.
No, I suspect he won't be booking the coaches to take them to the Brick and an AMT Headingley, which a manager does. The stash, normally you're involved with.
Does he get to manage England women's and wheelchair teams as well?
No,
just.
No, but I think when all the stash arrives, you distribute it and make sure everybody's got the right initials size on the back of their haversacks and things. But maybe he won't be doing that. I think there are people at the RFL that probably can do some of that. well, the person that's left at the RFL can do some of that. He's someone good to have around the squad because both sides of the coin trust him. And of course, he's taken over from Colin Maskill, who played for Wakefield 40 years ago.
This is his late punishment for that defeat.
There you go.
Apparently, the noise is okay. Wires? I don't know.
What worries?
Ian Boldsworth said I should put a thing on the microphone so I know which one's wrong. So maybe it's that one. But they were cheap. So. Like building a squad. If you're Hull FC and you bring in some cheap players and they're no good, you've only got yourself to blame. What was I going to say about Sam Tomkins apart from... Carson wanted to know about the documentary. I don't know, is he going to be on Super League Plus? I don't know.
It's supposed to be on Sky Documentaries.
So I'm sure you'll find a way, Carson.
It's good. It's good.
It's
really
good.
insightful.
I don't know if the fact that Brian Carney was previewing by saying there's some adult language on it and saying don't let the kids watch maybe suggests that the bad word was on it, but I don't know if it was or not because I've only seen it in the cinema.
If
it is, it's
at the end of it, now you've seen it in big screen with popcorn.
Yes, no popcorn.
You should have had popcorn. No. You can't watch a
I
film.
paid for my own ticket.
Yeah, but you have to have popcorn. Yeah. Do you like him more or less now you've seen the documentary?
You know, I don't think it's changed my opinion of him. Not in the sense that I thought he was a git or anything beforehand, but he's a very driven individual, isn't he? And
I think actually I thought he was a far more rounded character at the end of it than perhaps he's just a very good rugby player. They like everybody, they have lives, don't they? And I think you see other sides of him. And I found that the best interview he ever did, the most honest, was when he was England captain before the World Cup. We went and did a media preview, and I thought he was really different in the way that he approached that than perhaps I'm this club and I'm representing that club and that's all that matters, this club. I think he had a real wider perspective on the game for the first time I'd noticed it, and I think that comes out during the film as well.
I think he's real.
I think he's real. I think he's authentic.
I think
he cares.
I think I wrote in the column about the Ashton Sims thing, didn't I? Because did I not? I can't remember. No.
I think that was in the column before. That might be in this one.
When they mic'd him up on the pitch and he was obviously playing up to it.
It's in
that one. I can't remember when I knew I'd written it at some point. When Sam Tomkins is mic'd up during those games, he's not playing up. No. And we saw that on Sunday, obviously, on Saturday rather. He's not playing up to the fact that he's mic'd up because no one knew.
I think there is a genuine feeling that even though he was wearing a microphone, because he was in such an intense state in the games he was playing, he forgot that he was wearing a microphone. Whereas Ashton Sims, it's like, I could be a TV star.
Yeah. And they put him on the telly and he was... Yeah.
But I think Sam he agreed to be wired up, and then genuinely, he didn't forget. I don't think you can forget, but I just think it never entered his mind that he had to regulate the way he normally behaved. A bit like Rugby League Raw, which there was a clip of on... Did you see that social media today? Where a Rochdale player gets simbed by a very, very young Ben Thaler, and then there's further dissent and gets sent off, and none of it is bleeped out.
I think it's as I do write this month, it's difficult for us who've seen his whole career to really change much of our opinions on him, because we've got that innate bias of whether we like him or not. And some people, obviously, that's stronger than others, especially if you're a Leeds fan. But it's a fascinating piece of work, and those insights into him on the pitch, that's something you do.
And even though,
and as much as when that's what I was writing. Well, it was Sam Burgess when he was on Sky. That's what I was writing about. That didn't come across to me as authentic. I'm not saying Sam Burgess isn't authentic, but it came across as he knew he was...
The conversation about Calvin Klein underwear.
Whereas this...
didn't strike me as what you would have said in a dressing room before a big game.
This felt like this is the real story of Sam Tomkins, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no,
it's worth searching, right. And you will enjoy it. And it might not change your mind on him, but
it does stand against other documentaries of other sports where they've done, American footballers or boxers, and if you don't know rugby league, I think you'd find that absolutely fascinating.
There's a great one about, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, Chris Yavet and Martina Navratilova.
Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that. That's
from
brilliant.
completely different backgrounds.
Yes.
Blah blah blah. That is a great documentary, and you don't have to have any interest in tennis
brilliant.
whatsoever.
It's
It's
brilliant.
about the people, and this is like that. If you weren't a rugby league fan, you would enjoy this because it's about the person. And his mum is the most northern mum person you can find.
I think the other thing about it is you can see why the Dragons, as they are at the moment, wanted him back.
Yeah.
Because whether he is fully fit, whether you can be when you've had 8 months off, what you do get from that documentary is his leadership ability. And whilst it hasn't made any difference to the Dragons, and I think even Steve McNamara is running out a bit of patience with them at the end of this season, you can absolutely see why they would want him out there. Certainly for these last 2 games where there is still a mathematical possibility of them getting into the playoffs, bearing in mind they play London and Hull. They may need a result now to go in their way, but you would want Sam Tomkins out there for as many of the minutes as they got left this season to see if they can salvage it. And that tells you why.
As a player, in 10, 15 years' time, will he be in the conversation to be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Because it is difficult in this era when international rugby league is such.
Of course it is. But yeah,
I
think any English player that is snapped up by the NRL, irrespective of whether he got a knee injury and didn't fulfil his potential, the fact that they are prepared to go and get him, and at that time, don't forget, they were going for the cream of the crop and not young kids that they were prepared to wait and see develop. Yeah, absolutely. At his peak, he was one of the best players we've seen in Super League.
The booing thing at Headingley during the Exiles game is
fascinating.
It's fascinating because it does seem like a long time ago what the Exiles
Although
concept
again, the reason for it, the gesture at Wembley, it's all fascinating.
And maybe that belies how important the general public saw England versus the Exiles. Because if it was England versus Australia, I don't think he would have been booed, would he?
No, absolutely not.
Or England versus whoever.
England versus Lancashire.
What else has happened this week that I mentioned on Twitter earlier? What does international manager do? Street players staying down. Before we get on to Derek Beaumont, because if there's anything he likes more, it's attention. Halifax and Whitehaven. Well done, Wakefield, donating all that money yesterday.
I mean, that's a terrific gesture, I think.
And a bucket collection and
because
stuff.
if that money pays the Whitehaven players' wages and nothing else for the rest of it... Now, obviously, we can't say that it will. That's down to the Whitehaven club. They know what their most pressing debts are. But for Wakefield to try and do something to ensure that Whitehaven finish the season by paying their players to get players out there, huge match this week. Absolutely enormous match this week. He says quickly, checking that he's got it right. Yeah, Barrow Whitehaven. The loser of that game, possibly automatic relegation. The winner, possibly in a playoff with Featherstone. But huge for Cumbrian Rugby League. If by Wakefield making that gesture they ensure that Whitehaven play that game, then well done to Wakefield.
I realise why the YouTube didn't work at the start. It's because I put the wrong date on it. I picked the wrong thing, and it says we're in 2020, which we're not. But people have found us anyway, which is the main thing.
Oh, that's nice. But
I'll just change it now before I remember. So Whitehaven limp along to another day, and again, the same questions are what happens next.
I think the other thing about that is there's a genuine realisation that Cumbrian Rugby League is important, and speaking to Darryl Powell at the Sheffield event, where again he spoke beautifully and how much Sheffield meant to him, bearing it first ever signing. I think he said that we wanted to do something, or Matt Ellis did. I think all of the credit is with owner Matt Ellis. We wanted to do something to safeguard the fact that Cumbria has always been such an important part of rugby league, and still great players are coming from there. And I think it's brilliant that Wakefield have done that. Asking the public to support Halifax, you've really got to know where that money is going. I think our good friend Mr. Studd, it should be ring fenced in an account. And, not only should you be accountable for it, but you might want to ask for conditions to be attached to it, such as fans being on the board if it's reconstituted in that way. Whatever it is, I think we learnt from the Bradford experience. It's not quite as simple as giving money, but I do think that gesture from Wakefield was astonishing.
Yeah, because Jamie Peacock's never going to get his medals back, is he?
Leon Price, and it's not fair. No. It's not fair because they gave everything they possibly could for a cause. More than that, they gave back with their memorabilia and got nothing back for it, and that can't be right.
So what happens at Halifax next? Because they're the latest cab off the rank, and as I mentioned last week, and previously, we as a sport we've been lucky in a sense because we haven't lost. I know we've lost West Wales and London Scholars to an extent, but we haven't lost long-established clubs in the line of a Wasps or a London Irish. But we obviously do have our financial issues. What happens with?
I think the first thing to put out, everything needs a context because it's easy to shout at a headline and that's life these days, isn't it? But the context is that Leeds, St Helens and Wigan have all announced their financial results for last year in the last week. Mr Davidson of this parish wrote a piece on Rugby League Hub long reads with the exact financial details if you wanted, but all three clubs that you would deem to be the most successful, however you measure that, certainly in terms of being in grand finals, in terms of their crowd figure, in terms of their income generation, they all made losses. So what do we expect a Halifax or a Whitehaven to be doing? I think in Damien Clayton as CEO, having come through Armed Forces Rugby League, done a massive amount for RAF Rugby League to get it established and recognised. They've got exactly the right man as CEO. I think when the proposals were brought out about grading and some clubs railed against them and some were very supportive of them, he and Halifax were saying this is what we need, this is the template that we need as a club. We need to pare everything back to decide exactly what it is we are, what we can be, and then how we go about being better. And we want to be better, but we now know that there is a system in place that says it's not just about going out and overspending on players and trying to win promotion that way. There's things we need to do, links we need to make with our community. I think they'll do it. I think if they get this bridging to take them into next year, the plans that they've got will see them through. And I hope they do because they're, again, a very important part of the history of the game. And it's the same with Whitehaven. I think Whitehaven might look back and say, we went down that road of signing Australians, Papua New Guineans, who we couldn't really afford with the income that was coming in. We need a different model that relocates us back into the community we come from. And it might not be that we're going to be challenging for promotion every year, but what we are going to... I think Barrow have built they're on their way to building a very sustainable club with the work that they've done with getting people into their stadium for reasons other than watching a rugby league game. They were very proactive in the Euros, weren't they? Put all the games on big screens and re-engaged with their community. I think there is hope for these clubs, but there has to be a measure of realistic expectation. That also has to come from their own fans.
Barrow, who smartly, I don't know if they're still doing it this year, but when they have double headers with the women and the men, would have cheaper attendances if you went in before the women's game, which kicked off before the men's, because they get more people in and they sell more beer and blah, 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 blah. And look at where Barrow's women are in the table. They've won 5 games out of 13. They will finish as the best team outside the top 4.
Newly promoted.
Without any hype pre-season. Amanda Wilkinson's the coach of the year.
Without any big name signings either in the women's game. And that's no disrespect to players that are playing for them. They've excelled. But they didn't go out and say, right, well, now we're in Super League, we need to sign Jodie Cunningham and Emily Rudge or whoever. They are building from within.
We've only heard of 2 players. Andy says all rugby league clubs are in debt and the sugar daddies are keeping us afloat. And that's the same of all sports. So it's not as if it's a rugby league thing. I don't know how, we can't change the model of professional sport. That's the problem. And
I think that's right. And you look at the clubs that are struggling the most and they don't have a sugar daddy. But that's why you have to work doubly hard to make sure that you're sweating your assets, which is mainly your stadium, which I think again, reading around some of the Halifax issues, the local councillor trying to help them, very supportive. I know there's been issues with the pitch and all that kind of thing, but it seems to be that rugby league has been less affected by that than football. And the leader of the council has already said they want to do everything they can. So I think that, we have to be realistic about the level of income we can generate at the moment, and it's clubs themselves that have to pare back expectation.
And of course, Wakefield without Sugar Daddy cut their cloth accordingly, so it can be done, but unfortunately you might get relegated.
Well, and you're looking at clubs like
Mr.
York.
Carter slagged off all the time.
York, who are now unbelievably have got into the top six. But I say unbelievably, not because they don't deserve to be there, but you look at their starts of the season, and even one of their assistant coaches was saying, I don't think I can see a way where we're going to make the playoffs.
Mark Applegarth, you see, they didn't see.
No, but there is a club that everybody would say is building the correct way. We know of a team that has a women's side that has a chance of being in the playoffs for the Super League that has already said it's too early for us to be in Super League. Not that they're not going to throw the game or that they're going to go out and do the very, very best thing. But if they don't make it, it's not going to derail them from what they're doing. That's what clubs are now going to have to do.
Carson says, will clubs revert back to social clubs with bars and restaurants like in Australia? No. Andy mentioning Salford's best period coming when they had the best social club in rugby league. Unfortunately, we're in the year 2024 and
the world's changed. I mean, Salford getting greater access to their stadium is another good news story for them in the last week. But they need to up their... It's no good having new income streams. Oh, we get money from the bars and the pie stands. If there aren't enough people in there to buy those beers and pies for you to generate that income. So anything you get now is more than you had before. But the issue for clubs like Salford is, how do we get more than 4,000 people in?
At least they announce their attendances, which is good for them.
But Hull KR have shown a model whereby you start from the ground level and rebuild, and that starts with things like your academy. I'm biased, clearly, and I'm here to promote a magazine because I'm passionate about it.
I thought we were here to promote Leeds, but no.
The My Life in League feature in this current magazine that's out in shops on Friday is Dean Andrew, who is the current chair of European Rugby League, former president of the Rugby Football League, and again one of these pioneers in getting RAF Rugby League up and running and acknowledged and recognised. It's a fantastic story. But in it, he talks about being the chair of the panel that gave out elite academy licences.
Oh, from that...
And one of the teams that didn't get it was Hull KR in the initial instant. They've got it now.
It made all those kids cry.
But what he does say is, whilst that's not the reason why Hull KR are now what Hull KR, what it forced the club to do was look at why they hadn't got one. Now
rather than moan as other people did.
Well, they did moan initially,
but
claim it was unfair and unjust. But what they did was took it back to the board and said, why are we not getting things like this? Why are we getting relegated from Super League? Why don't we have sufficient people coming to see us who, in an area where we think we can double the size that of the attendance that we can get? All of those things that became introspective. And look at them now. We're on the verge of lauding them for having a home playoff semi-final.
Hull FC 20, Halifax Panthers 56. That's in the Wheelchair Super League. And it does mean that Saturday's game between London and Hull, been playing in Barking, I think.
It's a playoff.
Playoff. So,
which is massive.
The final game for both teams. Of course,
I think London will stream it, because haven't they streamed most of their games on their YouTube channel? Yeah. If unfortunately we've got 3 Super League games on at the same time, because we're not clever enough to. No. But if you get the chance, watch that Wheelchair game. There's a hell of a lot riding on it.
In the Women's Super League this week, congratulations St Helens, because they before I forget, congratulations League, because they finished top of the Women's Championship thing, and now they get to play London, who beat Cardiff.
No, they've won the West. They get to play
the winners of the East.
Yes, right. And then the winners of the West and East play London,
and then the winners of London and
League play Featherstone, who are bottom of Super League.
Right.
The winners of all that is in Super League.
Yeah.
So
Although
yes,
Super League really needs both London and Cardiff in there. But
well done, Lee. Well done, London, for winning the Southern Grand Final.
Did they get a proper trophy and medals? Do Leeds Rhinos got the wheelchair League Leader Shield? I was going to go on Friday and I thought...
Presented on the pitch in front of 14,000 people. I mean, they are the most successful team that wears a Leeds Rhino shirt at the moment. So they got well and truly lauded from the South Stand. And they got Tony Sutton of the RFL, presented them with the hubcap.
Not enough people in wheelchairs, though, to make people think, they're wheelchair people.
They interviewed Jodie on the pitch. Who's going to argue with that?
I should ask her to come back on the podcast.
She'll come back.
Because people like her.
She'll come back.
Yeah. So that was good.
The women guests are the best guests, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I was going to go on Friday, and I thought, I can't be bothered. So I just watch it on telly because it's funnier. But we'll come on to Leeds and Hull in a bit.
To be honest, there isn't a lot to say.
No, Leeds with their new heritage kit, they've released it for next year already. It's this, but with Tetley's written off and Patrick.
20 years. 20 years since they wore that kit. Inarguably, and again, talk about, is the game comparable to how it was 20 years ago? 39,000 people turned up at Ellen Road to watch the World Club Challenge. What would we give for an event like that in a moment?
So we need to fix it to get Leeds in the World Club
Dragons,
Challenge.
Before I forget.
What about them?
2026.
Oh, yeah.
The 30th anniversary of Super League.
Yep.
Looking to take their game with Wigan back to Paris, where Super League kicked off. It'll also be the 20th anniversary of the Dragons entering the competition. And, of course, on the opening night, they beat
Wigan.
And looking to take a game back to the Camp Nou,
yeah,
where they played Wigan.
Maybe they could have a Sheffield versus Paris pre...
They want an undercard.
Yeah.
Now, it could be Sheffield, but it won't be Paris.
No.
Sheffield to lose would be a fabulous undercard. Unless Toulouse are in Super League.
Back to the Camp Nou, but Vegas this time, it's all going on.
It's how you do it.
No one, I know people keep saying this, but no one in America who sees Wigan Warrington and compares it then to whichever Australian teams are playing, I can't remember, they're not really going to know the difference.
Oh,
there are differences, but
they to the untrained eye, if it's a close game, it will be comparable. Rugby league is a fabulous sport when two teams are of equal standard, whether that be in League One, the Community League, the Women's League. If Wigan and Warrington produce the kind of game that we think they will, that is all intensity, all has meaning, and is close, and they won't care that they're also watching Canberra against Cronulla.
Bernard Gouache has some affection for Wigan, says Andy. Well, they bring people, don't they? They do bring a crowd.
No, and again, it's not just affection. I think there's a genuine link between the two clubs because they were asked for as the first game. They did create a Super League record in Barcelona. So yeah, other than Warrington, who they beat in a Challenge Cup final, Wigan is the team that means the most to them in their history.
Do they have good cows in Wigan? Says Carsten.
It doesn't matter.
Pies. In Women's Super League this week.
Yes, they turn the cows into pies in Wigan.
Oh, could do with a pie. That'd be nice. Barrow 24, Huddersfield 4. Barrow continuing to be good, as I keep saying. I think she should be Coach of the Year. I mean, I've got no influence on it. But if you look at the league table, who else has overperformed?
Wigan.
Fair?
I think Dennis Betts has done a fantastic job at Wigan, and because Leeds didn't score enough points against Featherstone, congratulations to Featherstone on not allowing that to happen. The game between Leeds and Wigan, now moved to Friday, doubleheader with the men. If Wigan win that, their points difference will see them finish above Leeds. Okay. So those 16 points Leeds didn't get to go above Wigan on points difference.
Without revealing who backed York +2 and Barrow -12 but left Leeds -52 off the coupon, it was a good Sunday of Rugby League. Leeds 52, Featherstone 12. I mean, I was in Leeds on Sunday lunchtime. I thought, this weather's not very good, is it? I don't fancy Leeds scoring many points in this, but they scored 52, so...
Mainly in the second half.
Yeah, 18.
But Caitlin Beavers is out for the season.
She is, because of a hip drop.
Criticising a tackle that was put on her.
Yeah. So I mean, I haven't seen the tackle.
Means
But
she's
Clay
not
got a
gonna-
3-game ban.
Not going to be able to play for England, which is not going to be Great Britain.
No,
Do you like the kit?
it's all right. Last year it's too much like Scotland. This year we've got beer on the adverts.
But we're clearly not going. What question?
Yeah.
What was the point of the survey of people to see if we should have Great Britain back? If we don't announce the results of that survey and then in a press release about the New England kit say, by the way, it's going to be England.
Did they just do it to give people something to write about for a week?
But don't you at least announce the results of a survey if you've asked people to do a survey?
I don't know.
Do you not put out a release that says
Depends.
we've had a survey and people want England, or
How representative?
Or do
was
they
the
want
was it a proper?
or do
survey?
they want Great Britain but they're not going to have them?
Was it a proper survey like the ones in
I don't
League
know.
Express? What did the League Express ask this?
It just seemed weird that we haven't had an announcement about should we bring back Great Britain. We just get a kit announcement that says it's going to be England.
Readers poll: who is the best Papua New Guinean player currently playing in Super League? Reece Martin. Well, I'd have voted for Edwin Pape. He got second.
13 out of 13 goals.
And apparently he could have broken a record, but he gave Donaldson. Or was it not a record? No, right. Yeah. So that was good, wasn't it? Back to the Women's Super League. Where was I? Oh, St Helens. Congratulations on winning the League Leaders Shield. If they give you medals, then if you've got any spares, lend them to the Leeds Rhinos wheelchair team. 98 points to nil against Warrington. 42 left at half time. Leah Burke with 4 tries. Did she get 4 the other week as well, or something?
She's top of the. She got 22 in the season.
Paige
League games
Travis,
only.
still my highlight of the season. Got a hat trick. Evan Stock got a hat trick. Loads of people scored tries. If you didn't score a try, shame on you.
They were
shame
ruthless.
On you.
Ruthless.
Well,
which is what you want.
It should
It's
be.
exactly what you want.
They must be gutted they didn't get 100.
No,
because Wigan got 100 earlier.
No, I think again.
There's too many Warrington connections there, and they don't want to upset Warrington.
They got the last try in the 80th minute, so 98 in 80 minutes is
just in case
some going.
Warrington try to sign all the Saints players that are from Warrington next year. But well done, St Helens. You won the League's Leaders Shield. And
deservedly so.
Then,
you've been the best team.
Then you're on telly drinking pints, and people saying, oh, "Hide your no, don't hide your pint."
That was funny. Was it Jodie Cunningham going hide your pint?
TV's Jodie Cunningham. She's famous.
You don't need to hide your pint. You
You've
celebrate.
won.
You're celebrating.
You've won.
You've
You're
won.
not the men's team. They're rubbish. More on them to come. Wigan 12, York Valkyrie 16. Well, the other thing about the Warrington game is, and this makes no sense to me whatsoever. Now, I know they were always going to lose that game. That was always going to happen. Why are Warrington's women not playing before the men at the stadium in which they don't rent it off someone? It's not like Huddersfield where the Huddersfields can say, well, we've got football in it, so you can't play any rubbish. So. But why are Warrington's women not playing pre-match? Why were Wakefield's women playing at Eastmoor yesterday when the men an hour before the men were playing? When the new super relaunch Wakefield Trinity Ladies. Has
it been relaunched yet, or it's going to be
relaunched? Yeah. I think. But why aren't they playing at the same ground before?
Well,
the men?
maybe that's part of the relaunch.
Play somewhere else.
It needs to be at home.
Barrow play their games at home before the men, and Featherstone do, and York do, and Leeds do, and.
We're going to go into this Friday.
And Wigan had to play their game at Lee Miners.
I saw TalkSport were commentating on that. Didn't look like much of a commentary booth really at Lee Miners. Which again, if you're going to be on national radio,
it's not great.
Got to provide the right facility.
And they weren't complaining about that.
No, I just saw a picture.
It's the optic of it.
And it was obviously terrible wet weather.
Yeah.
You don't really want your commentator holding up an umbrella and commentating and trying to keep their notes dry at the same time.
When I was doing non-league football in the early 2000s on a mobile phone on a local radio station, that's a bit different from
national radio.
It's called Super League, which is another point about the competition and who's in it and who isn't in it. And what adds to it and what doesn't. This week's fixtures. Well done York from the win, by the way, 16-12. Without Townley and Stanley. Sounded
like a fabulous game. Well done Wigan, because I think again there were some thoughts when York went ahead early on that they get 2 tries in 6 minutes at the beginning, and then they didn't score again after that. That's fantastic, Wigan.
I enjoyed the bit where it sounded from the commentary as if Rhiannon Marshall was penalised for being Rhiannon Marshall and just tackling someone with physicality. Because
they've been saying that in the NRL, haven't they? You're tackling people too hard, penalty.
But Dennis Betts said month or so back that Wigan need to be bigger. I don't know how you can't just magic that up overnight.
No,
so,
absolutely.
and experience will help as well.
I think he's changed the mentality at Wigan, and they will be the team to beat next year, along with St Helens.
Looking forward to seeing how they go this week. Although I won't see it because I'm out, but I will record it because it's on actual telly.
It's
so
on
you can
Sky, proper telly. So the way it is at the moment, Leeds, York and Wigan all don't know their finishing positions. You would think, with the greatest respect to Featherstone, that York will win, which will put them on 22 points. Then Leeds and Wigan, one of those has got to lose. So the way it's looking at the moment, you'd think St Helens top, we know that. York likely second, and Leeds and Wigan fighting it out to see who goes to St Helens in the semi-finals. Maybe.
You don't want to go there, do you? And the semis are on the Sunday the 22nd.
Both of them, one after the other.
Yeah, 5 and 7:30. So that's great for newspaper deadlines.
Herself is on Sky.
Is she?
For the women's semis.
I mean, depending on where they are, and assuming that they, as you say, if one is at Leeds, I will go to one. But if one is not, then I probably won't be able to get there because I'm off to the wheelchair game.
Unless Leeds can beat Wigan.
I think
because
they will.
they've got the best points difference.
Yeah.
If they can, they will be at home.
So I'll probably go to that. But I think Leeds will beat Wigan.
Do you?
But I think it'll be.
That's a brave call.
Yeah, but I saw them recently, haven't I? So
depends who's playing as
but
well.
I also saw York against Leeds, and I saw depends which Leeds turn up.
Which is exciting.
Yeah,
Last weekend of the season, and we don't know what's happening.
We don't need. What's the phrase?
Predictable.
Uncertainty of outcome.
That's it.
That's the one. So it's St Helens Barrow on Friday night before the men play. So again, well,
good.
I hope they get to take the shield around before the game. So here's to the men. Here's what you could have won. The Wakefield Shield's everywhere. It's got more fingerprints on it than something from a Columbo episode.
That's what you want.
Featherstone
but
York,
we all know who did that.
Well, yeah.
It's a celebrity in the credit in the start.
I've been watching too many of them recently, but they are good. So even a bad Columbo.
How do you make 2 hours out of that? Let's be honest.
He's just great, isn't he?
But it's the same every.
I know. Well, that's the problem when you watch one every day that you don't realise that. But it's still good.
Oh, it's good, but.
And that time Brian Carney wore a coat like him on the telly. That was great as well. Huddersfield Warrington and Wigan versus Leeds, which is on Friday but not on Sunday because they announce it late. But that's good. Ian's tuned in. I am half an hour behind. We'll let you know that Jaffa Cakes have done a cola bottle version. We've had them on the programme.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've had them.
And raspberry, which I think is the best of them all.
So yeah, we've done that, Ian.
Quite like the lime, but raspberry.
Do you think herself would like them when she comes in? Because she's going to come in a couple of weeks, but yeah, I'll bring some. I've got some at home. Which club gives you media the best hospitality snacks? Asked Andy. Well, I've not been to many games this year, from many and various, but I don't think I've had any food this year. So it's usually Leeds, Wigan pies. I'm assuming they still do pies. Have Saints improved from their meal deal? No. We should have a word with Saints and say, come on.
Soup at Hull. Hull KR have upped the ante the last couple of years.
Remind me about Saints food after the programme. So Andy, it's all rubbish. But why should we get food? Why should we get food?
We're not entitled to anything. So whatever we get.
I used to only go for the programmes. Now no one does programmes. It's not worth me going. So make 4p off a YouTube video. Although again, so things I noticed this week.
We've got a pie at Huddersfield this year.
Wow. Things I noticed. Oh, we need to talk about Huddersfield, don't we? But we'll talk about them when we get to the game. NRL, they put a video up on a Monday morning of all the tries from the round. Why aren't we doing that? Because that's easy.
Have they got more money than us?
Yeah, but that one person sat in an office can edit
got
that
the person. Or you contract it.
I could do that.
Exactly.
But, and for the Women's Super League and all the other things. Not the Wheeljackers around about the videos, but...
Playoffs in League One this week. They start.
Yeah. I was going to ask about who do you think is going to win Women of Steel, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think Jodie Cunningham should, because every time I've seen her play, she
was good on the telly as well.
She's good. Very honest.
Yeah. Sunday then, the playoffs this is staying League One. Rochdale versus Hunslet. Midlands versus Workington. One of those teams, their season ends.
Well,
in
Midlands in the playoffs for the first time, so I think salute to them.
Well done.
Is Jake Momo going to play for them?
He's played less games than Gary Henson has for West Wales at this point.
And Rochdale,
with slightly less media coverage.
Rochdale Huntler get another chance, but again, two very traditional teams fighting for the right to be in a different division. Worth watching.
Yeah.
Both of those games.
But are they going to be streamed anywhere?
No.
Because no.
But again, Midlands building.
Yeah.
You know, I think in an organic way.
Carson keeps wanting me to mention Wales, Germany, because he mentioned it earlier, I forgot. Netherlands, Scotland this week as well.
Yeah. Is it Sassenheim?
I have no idea.
Carson will be
There's
there.
mentioned that.
Carson will be there.
Carson, Wales versus Germany were playing on the 2nd of November at Neath, the starting point of Jonathan Davis's senior career.
Well, Wales are playing all of their games.
I thought that was at Widnes.
They're playing all of their games in Neath now because there's some agreement now with the Welsh Rugby League. I think that an agreement's been signed at all of they're playing Jamaica in as a warm up to the World Cup qualifiers in Neath on a Tuesday. I don't think we'll get to Neath on a Tuesday.
Is that the same day as the Hall of Fame?
It might
Something
be.
strikes me that it's on my birthday as well. So, the Norwegian Rugby Union thing. You just can't trust them. You can't trust them. I've not read the story. You just can't trust them.
The story basically is World Rugby.
Yeah.
World Rugby are threatening in Norway because they will only recognise one code of rugby. Under rugby comes not only rugby union,
not rugby's the
American football as well. Because I think anything with so the World Rugby, which controls rugby union, has said to Norwegian Rugby Union, which is in charge of this overall body, they will get no more funding if Rugby League is part of it. So the issue is at World Rugby level, not Norwegian Rugby Union level.
So we send an email to Bill Beaumont.
Rugby Union, grow up.
Yeah, there is a letter in a programme from the early 80s where David Oxley writes a letter to Twickenham about similar things. I'll take it out because nothing's changed.
Just grow up.
Nothing changes. You can't trust them.
No.
You think you can trust them, but you can't.
It's not 1895. No. Get a pair.
Well done to the Wallabies. Barrow 24, Toulouse 36. That sounded like a cracking game on Saturday, especially with the comeback from 22-0 down as Barrow almost did.
Toulouse holding on to second, but it's damn close in the playoff spots in the championship.
Well done to whoever at Batley tweeted out the fact that the last time Doncaster nailed Batley away from home was in 1951 when Doncaster were formed.
See, that's heritage.
So, talking about the Halifax situation again, clubs have got to look at how a Batley are run or how a Doncaster are run. In terms of Doncaster, they don't have their own facility, but somehow survive.
I was lucky enough to be at the grand final playoff in League One last year and talked to Carl Hall, who obviously has been a columnist in our very magazine for a year, our League One correspondent, about where do they go from there if they got promoted, and it's all planned out. It's not trying to... The sole aim this year was survival. Becoming a recognised championship club over time. Nobody sat down and said, we want to be in Super League. They may do at some point, but they know they can't be because they need to build the fan base. They need to re-engage with the local communities who would, there are clubs around there, Bentley, who are very progressive clubs. They need to feel part of whatever Doncaster are doing, and they're working very hard to do that. And I just think that there are clubs that can see, again, very supportive of grading Doncaster because it gave them what they needed to be a sustainable club.
Again, at this point, I will say again, I don't think I've ever spoken to Tony Sutton, but he must love the fact IMG exists because he can do nothing wrong. It's all their fault. If only they'd been there when Nigel Wood and Ralph Rimmer were ruling the roost at Red Hall, then they could have just blamed IMG.
Well,
unfortunately,
we can blame them for everything, but we're not inside the details of that deal.
Halifax 34, Dewsbury 6, so well done for Halifax on winning. But again, we talked about Whitehaven's crowd last week, 1,647 at Halifax. They need to build that up, and again, they've got to learn lessons from there. Sheffield, who were having to do the same thing because, as you say, they keep moving around. They had nearly 2,000 against Bradford. Someone will say
their heritage game.
The away support, blah blah blah.
Again, another defeat with Mark Aston not being involved.
30 points to 12.
That sounded like a fabulous game. Only one late on.
Swinton want to win for them over
That's the
Fev,
result. The result of the
28-8.
weekend. The result of the weekend is Swinton from nowhere beating a team that were a top six. Well, still are a top six team. And because Swinton play Dewsbury this week,
Oof.
there's a fair chance that they're going to be out of the relegation positions. And I thought they were nailed on for it last week.
And as we talk about those two games, and Sheffield without Mark Aston and Swinton with Alan Kilshaw, finding out about their things through the media, apparently. So that's good. Maybe the email went from RFL to spam, because the ones about the New England kit did for me. So, and by the way, if you're organising an England kit launch and people can meet the players, give people more than a day's notice. Probably a good idea.
Have we seen any footage of that?
Well, I've seen some pictures of.
Right, no, I just wondered. I don't know.
That's
Too busy this
probably
week.
following me Hardcastle and Caitlin Beavers and Tyler Dupree and whatever. I don't think I follow Robbie Mulhern, but that's no slight on Robbie Mulhern. He's probably not going to be playing for England. Speaking of which, to bounce around and not finish the championship yet, the people moaning about Chris Hill being in the England squad is not an indictment of Chris Hill, but an indictment of where are the young English forwards who can replace Chris Hill.
I think there are some. Matty Nicholson.
Well, why aren't they in the squad then? Why aren't they there?
Well, because I think
Where's Sean Wayne? Why can't we ask him?
because I think you've got to win the series. I think you're moving from you've beaten Tonga. You're coming out of a World Cup campaign where you're really disappointed you didn't get to the final. Your next obstacle, you beat Tonga 3-0. Your next obstacle is to beat Samoa 2-0, who knocked you out in the semi-finals. Your next obstacle is to go to Australia and play in an Ashes series, and you're building up to at least getting to the final of the World Cup in the Antipodes, which is really, really difficult. We did it the last time we were there, and the old ankle tap away from winning it. So I think you've got to find that balance if you're the coach between the guys that can build on what you did last year and the ones that can take you to where you want to be in 2 years' time. So I sort of get why he's gone with some of the experienced players that know the way he wants to play. You'd like to think that there's going to be an opening for some youngsters between now and 2026. December is the first of them. Nicholson is going to Canberra. That puts him back in the frame. So, I sort of get it. And it's a 31-man squad which should be whittled down, and maybe Chris Hill won't be in it when it is.
So that's good.
But at training, he's the kind of ultra-professional Sean Wayne wants to influence the people in that squad.
Wakefield 60, Whitehaven 6, and Widnes 6, York 12 as York's amazing run.
York with 12 men for...
Yeah.
I don't know when they're sending off.
And that's why referees make their own decisions, because they don't have someone watching it on the box.
But York's progress.
Well, they're at Wakefield on Sunday in the game some are calling the Marpak
Derby. That might be worth going to.
Are
you going?
I'm thinking about it. I am thinking about it. If they'll let me in. I don't know. Toulouse, Halifax on Saturday. I'm back to lose on the handicap there. Barrow, Whitehaven, Bradford, Batley, Dewsbury, Swinton, Doncaster, Widnes, Featherstone, Sheffield, the Mark Aston Derby, and Wakefield versus York on Sunday in the Championship. Super League, the best league in Super Leagues. What was on Friday? There was no Thursday game again this week, was there? So everything was bunched up.
Is the NFL back on a Thursday now or something?
But they don't kick off till 1 in the morning.
Do they have a Thursday game every week, or
I think they do up until towards the playoffs. Right. I think Thursday.
Because I couldn't help but notice my Sky channels were swamped with NFL last night.
Friday and Saturday is usually the college football. Sunday and then the Monday night football.
It was some of it was absolutely excellent.
Red Zone's brilliant. We keep saying this every year. If we've got 3 games on at once, we've got to have our own Red Zone. Just have someone sat there going, there's something else going on.
I don't know how they did it, but at least I think they had 6 games on in the early slot, but 5 of them, there was 1 score between the teams. And the whole thing about Red Zone is you don't have to follow a team. It's just like there is constant action.
Do you understand the kick-off bit yet? Because I don't.
No, you've got to nominate if you're going to do a short kick-off.
Which kind of spoils it.
You can only do it in the last quarter if you're behind or something.
You can't bring in Rowan Smith as a specialist short kick-off man if you're going to tell people you're doing it.
I know we're going to talk about Super League, but why were Hull trying short kick-offs so often when they were so far behind?
Castlewood 12, League 34. Castlewood got 9,000 people there because they said, please come, and then we can get an extra 0.1 on the IMG score.
And
so
they
well
came.
done to Cass.
And to be fair, Craig Lingard incredibly honest again in his post-match press conferences. Derek Beaumont managing to watch his team and Hull at the same time.
He's good. He's a man of many talents. What they are, not quite sure, but they are. Josh Charnley gets closer to that record again.
Except he does, but he doesn't because Ryan Hall's still playing. But he gets close to Danny Maguire.
Who's not?
Who's not going to score any more tries.
When must be due the Ryan Hall's going to go to Leeds? Danny Maguire's going to go to Leeds.
Oh, it started.
Oh, has it started already?
Yeah. Good. Now Brad Arthurs might be looking for
some assistance.
No, that's started.
So well done to Lee, as they are now 5th in the table after the weekend's results.
And we're 4th.
Yeah.
After their win.
So they are a point clear. On the desktop version of Super League Plus, says Carson, you can watch multiple games at the same time. So there you go, you can do it. But I don't have that, so I just run it on Sky because I'm lazy. I don't want to pay another 20 quid. But maybe I could do that. Maybe I could get rid of Sky and I could watch it. But I want to watch the NFL and watch the darts.
And women's.
And women's rugby, yeah, because that's not on Super League Plus, is it? But there you go, you ask your question why. Also on Friday, it was the big game, wasn't it? Wigan and Hull KR. Wigan 24, Hull KR 20. Sid, I know, very unhappy with some of the Wigan performances, but they won, as you said earlier. They scored lots of points when they had more players on the pitch, which is a good idea to do.
I think both of those teams will have got everything they needed out of that going into the last 2 games of the season. Hull KR know that they can compete with the big teams. They just need to keep everybody on the field. And I think Willie Peters was really bullish afterwards. When we've got 13 against 13, they'll be looking over their shoulder. Brilliant. Fantastic. Matty Pete, we did what we needed to do to win. Very professional performance. So, yeah, fantastic. I know the M1 was, and I'm going to use the word
the M62.
The M62 was an absolute bugger.
The M1 probably was as well.
But no, the M62 was shot. And if any of the Hull KR fans that went over, my hat goes off to you. So I know of somebody who got back at 3 in the morning. It's like, what? So if you went, fantastic.
I blame politicians. Someone should have had a word with Lisa and Andy. She was on the telly all the time.
But, so it would have been more than, I think, just short of 17,000 if the M62. But the fact that Lisa and Andy was there and exactly. Put pictures out on her social media feed about Billy Boston and Martina Fire, who she was with. Brilliant. She's the head of DCMS. That I hope she's, at the grand final if she can be there, and the test matches if she could.
The wheelchair one especially.
But great spectacle, loads of talking points. So, Micah Lewis, another fantastic solo try. If I'm Matty P, I'm thinking we conceded 2 tries on our own line, on the last tackle. Uncharacteristic, need to fix that back up again. Bevan French, clearly not quite fully fit yet, but can do things that no other player can do. The grubber and chase for his try, sensational. The crabbing across the line to get Junior in, sensational. Loads of things to talk about. Great game. Augurs really well for the playoffs.
See, if this was the early 90s, and I know Dennis Betts is on the Bench podcast this week, which apparently exists, and they ask him, why were Wigan so good? Apparently it's because they trained a lot. Not that they bought everyone, but they would have bought Michael Lewis.
Well, they bought
if Michael Lewis was around
and
now,
trained a lot.
They would have bought him. They would have bought
And
him.
I think Tyrone May is exactly what Catalan are missing at the moment, but you can see why he's so important to Hull KR. Liam Marshall, astonishing number of tries. This is 24-7 ahead of his nearest rival. What a finisher. Abbas Miski's try in the corner. That should have gone viral. I don't know if it did, but we're now taking for granted the acrobatics of some of our best wingers.
It's very
Petter
disappointing.
Hiku's interception.
It's very disappointing that, we were told at the start of the season, I know we talk about this BBC deal a lot, and we'll talk about the game that was on in a moment, but the video stuff's going to be on the website. It's going to be great. We're going to be, but it's not. The front page is full of stuff that's nothing to do with rugby league or nothing to do with anything.
I don't know about you, but I've gone on the official Betfred Super League site to look at highlights of the weekend. Every time you click on it, it says you've not been able to connect to it. But you can go on the Sky site and get them.
That's why I say we just.
But again, I don't know if it's a technological thing, and it might be me, and I accept that. But we're not making it easy.
I know there's a big difference between the NRLW and Women's Super League here. But even if I say NRLW, their tries are up on YouTube in seconds.
Yeah.
Where are the Men's Super League tries? Because they're all being filmed now.
Some of them are. Some of them are.
But not
everyone.
Every try.
But then there's a problem when you've got 3 games playing at the same time, haven't you?
Leeds 68, Hull 6. Embarrassing. Worst team ever, Hull. Because Leeds scored 68 points, and Leeds are crap, as we know. So, I mean, how did this happen? Leeds still in the playoff hunt.
Alfie Edgill, 4 tries. Not bad for a 20-year-old.
No.
Every one of them absolutely identical.
So, will that be a point where, if you're the coach, go, maybe
you're the coach of Hull, you're going,
doing that,
perhaps if you could move across.
Don't do that anymore.
When they've got a scrum, move across. But I don't know what to say about Hull that we haven't already said. I do have admiration for Simon Griggs in the same way that I did for Mark Applegarth. That he's been dealt a hand that is clearly not of his choosing. He's probably going to be there as an assistant next year. He probably can't say what he wants to really say, but he's honest in his appraisal. I haven't seen all of Hull's performances this season, but the score would indicate that was the worst. I don't know why. I watched them, and I've heard people say, "Oh, it's the senior players or the junior players aren't developed enough." I don't know what it is, but I also don't know why they thought making a. I understand why they did make a coaching change, because it's still more to do with the ownership model. But
which also might be changing.
I think you'd look at that and go, might not have been the best decision we've ever made. The recruitment for the year might not have been the best decision they ever made.
And the recruitment for next year might not be the best, but we don't know.
Time will tell on that. I don't know what it is when the hardy Hull fans that turn up, having watched what they've had to watch this year.
God bless them.
Their biggest cheer of the night was when Wigan scored against Hull KO. James Donaldson kicked a goal.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about that like Paul Anderson?
It was from right in front of the post, and as Brad Arthur said, the ugliest kick he's ever seen. But lovely moment for James Donaldson, who is a top class.
It's part of the Leeds exodus of players that happens every year.
He's a top class
every
professional.
And good on him for wanting to have a career outside of rugby league and knowing that now is a time that he can still play and get a proper job.
Pursued by Bradford because it can be so important to, again, whatever culture is. Him and Michael Lawrence, Bradford deemed to be the 2 players that wanted in training to impress upon the other players what being a professional is all about. He's a wonderful guy, James Donaldson, and he's been through, 3 knee reconstructions, and he's still in demand. Brilliant. I can't
kind of players that teams are built around.
Yeah, I can't tell you how good Leeds are or how bad Hull are, but 68-6 says it all. Brodie Croft was unplayable for that whole team.
I have to admit that was the game I chose to watch on Friday.
You like comedy, don't you?
It's like comedy. It's like because you don't get much on TV anymore. But just imagine, imagine the following scenario: if all that innuendo about Hull's ownership turns out to be true in the end, and then it's just funny. It's just funny, and
we need to see how it all unravels.
Unravel's the wrong word.
Something.
He's rotten in a state of.
No, something major has to change because some of the kids are really talented, but they are getting severely overexposed. Now, people will say that's injury. You can't do anything about that, and that may well be the case. But this is you know from watching Hull at Wakefield. They're capable of shipping a lot of points, and that, I don't, that's over a period of time. That's not even with the current set of players. Something is wrong.
Got a political discussion on the YouTube comments, to which I will say, remember when Theresa May said Brexit means Brexit? I've got a message from Derek Bowman. I don't know if he's a fan of the podcast or not. Grading means grading. You voted for it. You voted for it, mate. Keithley can say whatever they want because they were against it, so that's fine.
I just think again, it's either very.
You voted for it, mate.
It's either very brave or very brazen for an owner of a
I'm glad
club
you're here with the words.
to
Phil,
come out and say
this
that
thing I voted for.
Hull are a disgrace and a debar. I mean, it's...
Lee have never been a disgrace before. They've never got into Super League based on non-playing reasons, or
Dean Andrew.
you know, they've never done anything like that, or you know, torn up or threatened to walk away. But how is Ultimate Rugby going? We should start a new podcast about that. Number one in Turkey, by the way, this week. I don't think that's Rugby League players going over there and getting their hair done, but you know, well done.
Or teeth.
Yeah. So that's good news. Number one in Turkey. Yeah. Wow. Carson, get your mates to download us.
We should go on tour.
Should go on tour. Well, I think we've got an invite to Mallorca, so...
oh, lovely.
They haven't got any Rugby League there, but
do they like the podcast as well?
I don't know. We can probably get some listeners there.
Is Angela Rayner going, download the podcast?
Get some people to download it, but I can fix that. That's all right. Saturday, Warrington 16... we've gone on long. Warrington 16, St Helens 2. We mentioned the earlier drama in this game, but the question I ask is, obviously Saints' defence was quite good because they only conceded 16 points. Their attack's not very good at the minute, but maybe that will improve when Lee Briers comes in.
It will. It will improve.
Mentioning Leeds...
And they're going to have a back division that has some potency.
Mentioning Leeds not scoring...
And not Wonga Blake.
And not Wonga Blake. Oh, is he going? No, he's not. Is
he going? Should he be going? Let's ask the St Helens
It's interesting
fans.
how he's their scapegoat and he's not very good. So, well apparently.
You get a tap penalty. Just outside your own quarter. Big relief.
Yeah.
Takes the tap, passes it forward. Inexcusable.
I saw Deck Patton do something similar, and that's probably why he's not in Super League anymore. My question for Warrington would be is...
why didn't you score more points?
Exactly, because we said Leeds women didn't score as many points as they should have done against Featherstone.
We said that St Helens women did.
Why Warrington... I'm not
Leeds
saying it's necessarily
Leeds men,
not, but...
half-time winning 32-0. Brad Arthur says, can you do it again? They go out and do it again. Warrington need to be
places...
They just need to be more ruthless. If they're going to win the competition or get to the final, they need to be more ruthless.
Places might be determined on points difference at the top end of the table.
Yeah.
Might not be, but it might be.
And it shows how much they miss Matt Duffy as well, because when that link has been so strong between Williams and Duffy, to suddenly not have him there, and he will be back before, well, probably for the playoffs, you've got to have an alternative. And they just seemed a bit one-dimensional in the second half. To me. I don't know.
No, it's interesting.
Talking of one-dimensional, Catalan
Dragons.
It's great kit. I love that blue kit.
Yeah,
I think it's
very
one of
nice,
the best kits in Super League.
Mark Sneyd doing some drop goals and stuff. Could have got 2 points if he'd been in the NRL.
He was brilliant.
Got 40-20 and stuff.
That turned the game. Catalans had 8 minutes at the start of the game on the Salford line. Numerous opportunities. Their issue this year, particularly without Tyrone May, has been they cannot create enough. They had the position and the possession almost exclusively, and was it kicked a penalty? Not enough.
If I'm a team who is probably deficient in the centres, I'm thinking, well, here's a club who've got a history of selling players. I'm signing Tim. Well, come on, Tim Laffey. How much Salford? How much do you want from him?
Well, but they've signed Isan Masters, haven't they?
Yeah.
Salford. So Laffey probably is. How do you fit Masters, MacDonald, and Laffey in?
Well, wait for the signing every half-back. We're signing Jackson Hastings now. So
are you? Is that where he's going?
That's what the internet says.
Really?
Yeah.
How does that work with Ollie Russell?
And Jake Truman.
And Jake Truman.
And
is Jake Truman going to play in the playoffs?
I don't know. Well, he says Rugby League's rubbish now, doesn't he? So.
But doesn't that disrupt?
Do Wakefield need to win the playoffs?
Yes.
Do they?
Yeah, to complete the season, they do.
No, who cares?
No, they do. They do, and they'll want to. No, they'll.
Like Saints when they went.
No, they'll want to go to wherever the final's going to be.
The DIY Kitchens Megadome.
And prove to everyone that they've been the best team in that division. So yeah, they'll want to win it. But I'm just saying, if they put Jake Truman in, who's going to be the player that's played all year?
Not bothered. Ruthless. Got to be ruthless.
Well,
Dowd Powell's got to be ruthless.
How is he going to know the style that they play?
I don't know.
I just won't play him this year. I won't play
Well done, Salford. Catalan's,
Well,
Catalan's going to be starting the playoffs, aren't they? At this rate?
And
so,
Salford are. Well, they play Hull this week, so they're in.
if you do miss out on the playoffs, is that a bad thing? You get to rest your players a bit longer.
Yeah, it's a bad thing.
Internationals.
It's a bad thing.
Ben Aguash not happy
because that becomes your.
Average. We're back to Catalan's count. Oh yeah.
I think the other thing is, if Salford do beat Hull, let's face it, when Salford beat Hull, and we'll be back on this podcast on Monday when Hull have produced their one great performance of the season, beating Salford.
Richie Myler in.
Then Salford get a home elimination game. They are brilliant at home this year. Only lost 2 games, both to Wigan.
Need to get more people watching them. And
I don't know
how they do.
They can't play. They can't be playing any better. They can't. The last 2 years they have overachieved with the financial issues that they've had. What more do they have to? They play a really attractive brand of rugby. They've got a charismatic coach who talks really well. They've got some outstanding players who are sellable commodities. You know, the crowd love Nenny MacDonald. He jumps in them when he scores. It's a marriage made in heaven. But they need to get more people.
Gets homesick. So maybe there's this awful feeling that rugby's not as good as we think it is, and not as popular. Maybe people don't like it as much as we think they should. And I don't know why they don't.
No. And I understand that in certain enclaves in the north of England, we haven't had to sell it. No. Now we do.
Good job we brought in some international marketers to help us.
Only we listen to them.
And the Super League weekend ended with Huddersfield 22, London 16. In front of 3,439. It was a game of rugby. And
I mean, again, great for Luke Robertson, who's now been confirmed.
Yeah. So why did they bother wasting all that time?
I think they probably went through an application process, did due diligence.
Anyone applied?
And great for him that in the first game in charge he gets the W. I don't know what London have got to do to win a game. Probably just be a bit more game smart, because I think Mike Eccles is getting increasingly frustrated. But the interesting thing now is points difference at the bottom, because the team who finishes, they could both lose their last 2 games, but if Hull lose them by more than London do, Hull could finish bottom by virtue of their points difference.
This week on Friday, it's Lee versus Hull KR. That'll be good.
That's massive.
What I mean, it's ridiculous because I'm out on Friday, so I'm going to miss all the rugby, but I'm going to catch up when I get home.
But that's not the big game.
No, because the big game is Wigan versus Leeds, because it's always big.
And if Wigan win, they win the League Leaders Shield.
Oh wow, excellent! So, more trophies that they can.
Well, it's their trophy. They just get
keep it back to themselves. They got Wi-Fi at the Wigan Stadium. How amazing is that?
Well, does it work?
I don't know.
I'll tell you.
It did.
I'll tell you next week.
I did feel a bit. Oh, they've got this thing for the community. I thought, yeah, but lots of clubs do things for the community. I'm not sure why this is bigger than anyway. Not criticising Wigan, just saying it just seems to be a thing. St Helens Castleford, the Tom Maguire derby.
Which, of course, Castleford have already won at St Helens this year. Saints have
Having not won there for 7 billion years.
They have to win that. They just have to.
Yeah.
Because the last game of the season is Saints and Lee, and that could determine a playoff place. But if Castleford repeat it, it's all open to the last weekend.
At least on Saturday's games, they're almost kind of split. Although I'm not quite sure why.
No, they're not, because.
Well, I know
because they moved Hull and Salford, didn't they? That was a 3 o'clock game, and you could have watched all 3 games. I feel it's now a 5 o'clock game for BBC Two.
It's a bit on to BBC Two.
You can't watch that and Huddersfield and Warrington, which is a main Sky game.
Why have they picked that one? That doesn't appear to be a game I'd pick to show on TV.
Maybe it's for Derek Beaumont, so he can watch Hull again and see how abject they are.
Maybe to get him on the panel. Get him on there.
Get him in.
Get him next. Get rid of Kevin Brown.
I'll tell you what, I'd tune in.
Get Derek Beaumont on in his suit, his leopard suit.
At Hull, from outside the ground, because they won't let him in.
No.
Hello.
When Danica comes in, we should get her to wear a Lee hat. Or a Hull hat, or
she'll
a York hat, or whatever hat anyone gives her to wear. Yeah.
She could bring some York chocolate, that would be nice.
Did she say she was praising the Hull KR fans the other day, just to wind up Wigan?
She's a closet Hull KR fan.
Yeah. And
must have a hat.
Leeds, yeah. Hull FC versus Salford, followed by, well, not quite, Huddersfield versus Warrington. I don't understand why that's the Sky game either, because that's a bit of a meh.
Well, because if Hull KR
Can't they just send Brian back to that studio?
If Hull KR lose at Lee, Warrington can still finish second. Just saying, second's massive.
Yeah, and Catalans versus London, which again, Catalans out of form. London, you expect not to.
The thing about this game is because London have come so close, there's a chance they're going to win a game. Because this team is breaking up, this is the game where they can all sit on a plane together. They can all have put the last effort into this big away trip before they all break up. They can probably have a few beers afterwards as well. They are dangerous going to Catalan.
As Neil Sedaka said, breaking up is hard to do. I think that was Neil Sedaka anyway. Some comments.
Yes.
Because we're nearly finished. Warrington are -9 offer the best defence in Super League, which will probably be the best by the end of the regular season.
And you need that to win a grand final, but you also need to score enough points to win it as well.
Phil says, we've never had good crowds at Salford in the 45 years I'd followed them. And it's a strange thing.
It's
why?
weird.
Because even though when they have played good rugby in the past.
I can remember going there in the early 70s.
Did they pioneer Friday night?
Yeah, it was the play. And they were getting 10,000. So double what they're getting at the moment. Life's changed. The ground's moved. They went through a period in the doldrums. It's so hard to get people back. And obviously we've got an ageing supporter base overall. But they need to find a way of getting more kids.
Have you been sarcastic, Phil? Carson says you've been sarcastic.
About what?
I don't know. That's the whole podcast. Yeah. The whole hour and a half is just sarcasm. It's
really?
Thinly veiled sarcasm.
Sarcastic?
Yeah. Thomas says, I've not seen Thomas's name before, so hello Thomas, welcome.
Good evening.
It helps that I sent the wrong link out all day, but never mind. Thomas
Thank
says,
you for finding us.
Missed the first hour, but I've never seen a St Helens team not challenge Warrington. First time as a Wire fan, didn't worry about losing. And as Andy says, Wire never had to get out of second gear, and that's very true. But as we say,
they should have got up to fourth, because we're at that stage of the season where every win is a statement win. If you can put 30 points on St Helens and you meet them again in the playoffs, probably not going to happen. But you could be third v sixth. Psychologically, you need to get every advantage you can at this time of year.
And congratulations to West Tigers winning the Wooden Spoon in Australia.
God, absolutely. I think we can use the phrase arsehole by Parramatta.
See, so
Spoon Bowl, they called it.
Why does it matter? Why, when there's big scores in Australia, is that NRL's greatest thing ever, and the big scores here, and it's like, oh, crap.
The great thing about the NRL this year is that they've had 204 regular season games, and it was only in the 204th that we knew who the last team were to get in the playoffs.
Who's going to win? Who's going to win the grand final in Australia? Because I don't know anything about Australia. But I'm saying Newcastle Knights women.
I have to say, Melbourne are just a ridiculous force of nature. Craig Bellamy got his 400th win as a coach.
So he'll be in the Hall of Fame eventually, won't he?
He will.
He can't not be in the Hall of Fame.
No, he will. And it's going to take a very, very, very good... Penrith look like they've been the hunted too much this season. They just made it into second. Roosters have lost 3 top-line players who won't be back this year. That might cost them. Cronulla, I don't think, are good enough. North Queensland played really well. Canterbury, I think, 2 big defeats going into the playoffs. Getting in the playoffs is massive for them. I don't think teams from 7th and 8th normally have enough left to challenge. I don't think you can look beyond the storm.
If you're Peter V'landys, you've got to bring shirt names into the NRL, because the amount of money that the Sydney Roosters will make from the fella, the Wallaby fella, who's now playing for Fiji apparently in Rugby League, so that's good.
Yep.
Worth a fortune.
I can't pronounce his name. No. Scored the first try for the Roosters. Go on.
No. my eyesight is terrible today. And is the type in the league Express small, or is it me?
I think we're just getting old.
Yeah, it's like wisdom, this, is it?
I'd love to try and pronounce his name, but I don't want to do him an injustice.
Nawa Nitawesi, I think. If you say it often enough, you'll get it. Yeah. It's got a good rhythm to it. It's not as if one of these names which is just lots of letters in that doesn't make sense, like that place in Wales. Carter, there's 3 in a row for the Pride of Balmain. Is that why they want to quit the partnership? Is that why they want to leave? Phil says Melbourne are going to win. And at Castley's North Queensland, I'll be one-eyed as long as there is a chance.
There is a chance. Valentine Holmes set a club record for points in a season.
He's the Max Jowett of the NRL. I think that's it from us.
Can we open the biscuits yet?
We can open the biscuits now. We'll be back on Monday with another roundup of what's going on in the world of rugby league. They're in individual packets, aren't they? They're like a bit like triples, but
have you had these before?
Yeah,
because I've not seen.
A bit like triples, but slightly different.
Are they nice?
Phil says Na Wang Anit Awezi.
Excellent. We'll practice for next week. Are these better than Tim Tams?
I've never had a Tim Tam. I saw Elsie Albert's got to try in the NRL. She's good because we're a big fan of the Orchids.
We are. If we can mention PNG, then we get more.
We get some more listeners, yeah. Why isn't that film anywhere? Reece Martin.
We need to interview him.
Before he goes to...
No, because PNG people
yeah. Well, next time I'm at Leeds.
Yeah.
We'll sort that out.
He lives around here. We'll have to get him on the podcast.
Yeah.
If you can hear rustling, it's because I'm opening a biscuit.
I'm opening a biscuit. There was something I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about something, but I can't remember what it will be. But I don't know if we'll have a guest on next week because
James will be with us until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
The famous one off the telly, she's going to be here in a couple of weeks, so that'll be good because she knows celebrities.
Oh, she does.
I tell you what, I wish you could get her some free meals because she does know how to get a free meal.
I'm going to talking of which, I'm going to eat my biscuit.
Phil's going to eat his biscuit. I'm going to say goodbye, but thank you for watching, and we'll hopefully send the right thing. Right link next week, but you still found us anyway, so you know.
If you can hear crunching, it's me.